Hello there. With the beginning of the era of information technologies, it's become much easier to fall into temptation of doing two different tasks at the same time, especially considering pace of modern people lives. Your phone probably stays with you wherever you go, and sometimes you might want to spend your time a little more productively and use your phone even if you're in the middle of completing another task. Let's suppose you're a student. In which cases would you use multitasking? Maybe trying to text your friend and listen to your teacher simultaneously, or doing your homework and watching TV or YouTube at the same time, or scrolling through Instagram while going home. Actually, it doesn't matter which of these behaviors you tend to favor. They share one thing in common, which this video is about. Have you ever tried doing two or even more things at the same time? The chances are you have done it more than once in your life. And I call this behavior a trap for a reason. It's quite deceptive. Today I'm debunking a common misconception: multitasking. And of course, the most important question of today's video: does it work? As you might guess, the quick answer is nope. But if you want to learn why this is so, without further ado, let's get started. How our brain does supposedly shift from one task to another. According to a study conducted by Meyer, Evans, and Rubinstein, task switching consists of two parts: goal shifting and rule activation. The first one is about deciding to do one thing instead of another. If we look back at the previous examples, it means I want to text my friend, not listen to the teacher, or I want to focus on the YouTube video I'm watching instead of doing my homework. And the second part, rule activation, is changing from the rules for the previous task to the rules for the next task. Like changing from listening and memorizing things your teacher is saying to reading your friends' messages and replying to them. Actually, these two stages don't take a lot of time, comparatively speaking. But the thing is, you can't really multitask. Our brain isn't designed to do two tasks at the same time. And we people only have limited amount of attentional resources. There is only a limited amount of information that can be held in working memory. This is why some people compare our brain to a computer when it comes to multitasking. Random access memory has its limits, and when there is too much to focus on, one task replaces another. I don't know whether this is the most accurate comparison. Nonetheless, I hope you got the point. When you're multitasking, you're repeatedly switching from one task to another. And that time you spend on task switching may add up to a lot of time. So by multitasking, you may significantly decrease your output per hour and increase the amount of time needed to complete your tasks. The following study shows negative effects you may experience trying to multitask outside of the classroom. Students reported spending an average of 60 minutes per day on Facebook, 43 minutes per day searching, 22 on a mail, and sending an average of 71 texts per day while doing schoolwork. The point of study was to find out what activities would have effect on their academic success. It turned out using Facebook and texting while doing schoolwork were negatively predictive of overall GPA, but online searching wasn't, even though that was a high-frequency activity. Emailing, talking on the phone, and using instant messaging were not related to overall GPA as well. The explanation of Facebook and texting affecting academic performance of participants is that working memory is taxed while trying to pay attention to competing stimuli. And when a student is texting, she or he is unable to hold study material in working memory and in turn cannot process that information in a meaningful way. That's probably why many teachers don't like when their students use their smartphones in class. And that's another demonstration of your inability to really multitask. Even if you feel like a god of doing several things at the same time. As I said, attention is a limited resource. Imagine a movie in which a policeman is entering a dark room of the house he wants to search. He is using his flashlight and can only see the things that are inside that bright circle of light. He can't see the other areas, they are utterly dark. And when he wants to inspect what's on his left, he points the light at that direction. But the area he looked at first when he entered the room is out of sight again. So what happens when you're trying to multitask? You're repeatedly moving your flashlight from left to right, trying to see everything. But of course, some things may slip from your sight while you are focused on the different part of the dark room. Have you ever tried to read something when people next to you were having a conversation? It's terrible. You can't comprehend what you just read, and you come back and read that part again, maybe even several times. This is called regression. Of course, it substantially slows you down, and you seem to lose twice simultaneously. You can't properly listen to the conversation, and you can't read at the same time. I think you've heard of a famous experiment called the invisible gorilla. Researchers created a video of students passing a basketball between themselves, and viewers were asked to count how many times the players in white shirts passed the ball. And a lot of people who focused on that task failed to notice a man in a gorilla suit who walked right into the center of the circle of players. But when you watch that video knowing about the gorilla, it seems impossible not to notice such a detail. And another reason why you should consider limited amount of time you spend multitasking is that it can literally be dangerous. Let's talk about driving and using cell phones. According to studies, the relative risk of all accidents and of accidents with injuries is higher for users of cell phones than for non-users. That's why in many countries there are restrictions on mobile phone use when driving. This study shows that the relative risk for injury collisions and also for all collisions is 38% higher for men and women cell phone users. So you should be extra careful when it comes to your safety or safety of the people around you. Now let's talk a little about how we can make limiting multitasking easier. As you may know, habits may be triggered by specific cues. When we're exposed to them, our dopamine spikes. That's why you may experience anticipatory pleasure when you know good things are coming. Then, dopamine firing decreases below your baseline levels, and you experience dopamine mini deficit states. That's when craving kicks in. You want to increase dopamine firing and finally do that thing. You get a notification on your phone while driving. What happens next? You want to find out what it is about because of the dopamine mini deficit. If you don't do it, your brain will let you know it didn't go as planned. Dopamine levels dropping well below the baseline will cause the letdown of unmet expectation. If you want to do it and risk your safety on the road, your brain will reward you. But how can we avoid following this interesting sequence when we're driving? The answer is pretty simple. Turn your notifications off before starting driving. We can simply block ourselves from cues which will challenge our willpower, especially when it comes to such important things as safety. And same applies to studying. Cell phone may be a great distraction, so why resist temptation when we can cut it at the root? Turn notifications off on your phone, laptop, computer or watch if you want to focus on your task. And of course, don't forget about the TV. No way it's making you more productive. You can also try Pomodoro technique if you want a reminder of small time blocks intended to be spent on working on your assignment, followed by several minutes of rest. But your home may be full of cues that might trigger your bad habits. If it's so, you can try other places like coffee shops or libraries, it may work better for you, but I still prefer my home and believe I tend to be more productive when I work here. I love my minimalistic workspace because there is nothing superfluous, only the things I truly need often, like notebook and a pen for writing down my thoughts and planning my schedule. So such empty workspace keeps me away from things that can cause my distraction. And people may be interrupting as well, so close the door in your room or use noise-cancelling headphones if it's too noisy. Okay, let's summarize. Multitasking is thought to be a time saver among some people, but actually it's a myth, and studies prove that it doesn't work that way. What many people call multitasking isn't doing two things at the same time, but actually repeatedly switching between them, which causes your time loss. And even if it seems not substantial, in long term, it can decrease your productivity. All because our brain isn't designed for doing two things at the same time. Our working memory has a limit which can be reached by such habits. Don't forget that multitasking may be dangerous. For example, using your cell phone while driving. Even though this behavior may not be worth it, your brain might reward yourself for sticking to such habits. Dopamine makes using your phone no matter where you're at pleasant and creates craving, which causes you to do it again and again. Easy strategy you may try is avoiding cues of multitasking so they don't tempt you when it's time for important things. Alright, I really loved creating this video and I hope it was helpful and you learned something new. Subscribe if you want to see more and have a good day.